This episode is brought to you by One World Empowered. Hey there, tired mama. Do you wish you could push a reset button on your energy? Like, do you want to keep up with those Energizer bunnies that are running around you all day? I know. I feel ya. Coffee can only do so much. Well, don't you worry. I've got you covered. Now, just imagine a community of mamas who know the struggle and are working together to harness and reclaim their energy. We're talking about a true community of mamas who get it. Daily practices to jumpstart your days, accountability partners, group coaching calls to ground and recenter you throughout the 28 days. Does this sound like the exact dose of medicine you need in order to feel 100% again? If so, this program is exactly what you need if you want to be more present with your kiddos, if you think a new routine will help you maximize your time and you enjoy having an accountability partner to help you with developing that new routine and those new habits, if you'd like to increase your patience and energy all while reducing your stress and anxiety, and if you think it would be amazing to have an understanding community of mamas who get it and are on the same path towards healing. Mama, today is the day you choose you and level up. Come join our 28-day energetic reset for moms by visiting www.oneworldempowered.com/workwithme and click the Learn More option next to the Energetic Reset program, or just scroll down and click the link in my show notes below. I can't wait to meet you and witness you step into your full potential. See you there, Mama. You're listening to the Empowered to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Dina T, and I'm so excited to take you on a journey through stories of everyday experts as we share the ways we've harnessed the power inside us to improve the quality of our lives and the health of our minds. We're so excited to have you here with us and hope you feel inspired and empowered to heal. Hello, you beautiful souls. Today's interview holds such a special place in my heart because it is with my dear friend and my old coworker, Holly Stressman. Man, this woman, I tell you, she is known for her creativity, her resilience, her get-her-done attitude, and in the face of hardship, I feel like she is a pillar and a lighthouse in so many people's lives. And today, I'm so excited that she's joining us as she shares a part of her journey as she started choosing herself instead of her relationship. Now, I want to share a trigger warning here that the following interview may be triggering for some. We discuss Holly's toxic relationship with her ex, her miscarriages, and there's like a separate section that I share a trigger warning about some abuse that she experienced at the hands of her ex. And so due to the integral role that this part of her life played in her journey towards choosing herself and recreating the life that she dreams, we wanted to include it in this episode. So if you feel that you may not want to hear that section or it may be too triggering to you and you don't want to hear it, again, you can skip through that section. There is a special trigger warning right before that section of the episode plays. So without further ado, let's hear from our radiant, courageous guest, Holly Stressman. Hi there, Miss Holly Stressman.
Hi, Miss Dina.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so honored to have you on the Empowered to Heal podcast.
Oh, well, I feel very special to be a guest with you.
Thank you. I'm really eager to share with folks and have them learn a little bit about your journey. So, just a little background for our listeners. Holly and I have known each other for, I think, like 8 years. It's been a long time. I want to say 2012
Yeah.
is when we met. And we met through work, doing some really powerful and difficult work in the community, focusing on treating children and families' mental health needs and creating opportunities for healing. And throughout that journey, I got to know you so well, and your journey has unfolded, and your story has begun to unfold throughout the years. And just in the past year of 2020 alone, you have truly inspired me to the degree of
Mhm.
like being baffled at the strength and the resilience and how just strong you are to make hard choices and put one foot in front of the other in the face of the unknown, and in the face of fear and your life being shaken and turned upside down and inside out
Yeah.
to an unrecognizable degree, right? Like, so I really want to learn your story or hear help people learn your
Yeah.
story today, and hopefully help people hear that these hardships are they're not extremely rare occurrences. They're real and they happen,
Mhm.
and to whatever degree that is. But you've found a recipe that you refine and you add to and you mix up every day, but a recipe to keep living, and not living in a way with your head down and shuffling your feet, but living in a way with your arms open wide and your eyes seeing a new world and taking on new experiences, saying yes, right? Saying yes to the
Right.
unknown. And that right there is just astounding to me. And I want to learn how. I want to learn how in the world do you do that? Where does the strength come from? How have you conjured up the spirit within you to be strong and fierce in the face of adversity? So that's my hope for today and for our listeners. But do you want to share a little bit about your journey?
That's a good hope if we could figure that out. Oh, no, absolutely. Oh, and you got me about 20 seconds in, and you've already got me teared up because
Oh.
it is a journey, right? And it is it's a journey. So
Mhm.
yeah. So how a little bit of kind of the beginning of sort of when it started, I suppose.
Yeah. So if you want to share, like, I think just a synopsis of what you've gone through, and then when was the turning point in your life that you fully realized and opened your eyes to the decision of, I'm going to live life different than I have been?
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, yeah, I like you said, we met at work, and so my whole life has really been centered around kids and helping others. And as I grew into adulthood, finding behavioral health and truly learning about people and what makes them tick and learn, and then, but then also being sort of a rebel and a renegade and being empathetic for the underdog and always believing in people and rooting for people is kind of my jam. Um, in 2016, everything pretty I mean, and I would always say I'm so boring. People would be like a year later, they'd be like, What's new?" I'm like, "Nothing." Still doing the same job. Just everything was always the same. 2016, things got, sort of, things became difficult. My ex fiance at the time and I had gotten pregnant, and we were so excited. But then, unfortunately, in our second uh, the appointment, the our baby had passed, and so
Mm.
that kind of spun both of us into a depression, and that depression was very sneaky, I suppose.
Mhm.
Having fun, just not overly caring about things, maybe being a little more reckless,
Mm.
but then also being super sad. 2017, got pregnant again, got really excited, miscarried again, and then a third time in 2017. And so that was, again, just at that point, hopelessness and questioning things and God, and then going through an IVF exploration,
Mhm.
going through different doctors, trying to figure out the finances. At a point, I was giving myself shots twice a day and going and getting blood work. Remember, I mean, I would talk
I
to you.
Yeah, I remember seeing your tummy with all of the bruises and pokes from giving yourself shots and you giving yourself shots at work. Oh,
Mhm.
whew, it
And
seemed so painful, not just physically, like the act of doing that, but like the journey to arrive at a place of doing that.
well, and it was something that was interesting because there was this awareness of sadness and depression, but it was very wrapped up in the miscarriages, and there
Mm,
was an awareness of something's not right in the relationship, but it was wrapped up in the miscarriages. And
yeah.
then that gave me something to do. That gave me something to put my energy into.
Mm. I
And
like that you pointed that out, Holly, because I think a lot of people, myself included, we do that is when there's one thing that's tangible that we can focus
yeah.
on, we will pour ourselves into that, label it the problem that we are going to
Yep.
take control of and fix, while deep underneath that, there's like 10 like festering problems that are like, ooh, like bubbling under the surface,
Right.
right? And oh,
But doesn't my big shiny problem up here give all these other
yes,
ones excuses, right?
yes.
So my ex is a jerk, but that's because of the miscarriages, right?
Mm, mm.
We're not treating each other right, but that's because of this problem.
Oh,
So that was 2017, and so then that just really, I think, there was also a lot of work things happening. My I was shifting from that assistant director position into more of that clinical, because I couldn't manage the crisis
mm,
as much,
mhm,
like the on
mhm.
call
Yeah.
things. And that was a big piece too. Is I was throwing myself into my professional life. However, I also was, all of these pieces had some toxicity to it that I was trying to manage. And
Mm.
I think we still are, like, right? Like today, I could give you 7 things that I did wrong. But, like, um,
Yes.
so so anyway, so fast forward to the turning point. So that's sort of the really kind of just where the sad happened. And then I, like, medical problems. Remember, I burnt my leg,
Oh my
and
goodness,
my
yes.
ex had, broke his heart, just all these things. And as I reflect, I'm wondering, are those the outward, you know the pain coming out. I don't
Mm,
know.
yeah,
Anyway,
and I
uh,
I think it's important to highlight here too, like, this everything that you're describing and you're kind of building up to right now defines a relationship in your life with your partner, but also with yourself, right? Of a place of unhappy and unease and turmoil, right? Like there's the smile on the face and the throwing yourself into work, and then underneath that there's
mhm,
a whole wave inside you, like of the ocean, right? Like waves just hitting and bouncing off of these big emotions that are hidden under that smile or hidden under that exciting activity that you're about to do, right? Or big thing that you're going to throw
right.
yourself in. And I think that we don't talk about that enough as a society, especially with social media around us.
Mhm,
But there's everybody walks around with a smile and I'm good. And oh, how are you? Oh, I'm good. That just seems to be like a
mhm,
statement that comes out with
mhm,
no thought attached or no
mhm,
true connection around it. But
mhm.
many of us are walking around with our face saying one thing and our busyness saying one thing, while underneath our life is screaming something else, or our emotions are
Mhm,
screaming something else, right? And that's kind
mhm.
of where you were at this point, right?
Yeah, and and I was also, so very much. And it's interesting because at that point I wasn't on social media,
Mm,
and it was very kind of driven by my ex. It was just easier not to do things
mm,
because hearing him sort of his opinion like so much. It was just like, I don't even care, like,
Yeah.
and so going through the miscarriages and going through all of this, it was a very, 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 very lonely process that a few people knew about, you knew about, and some coworkers and some friends knew about, but it was pretty lonely. But I also think, and this is could be a whole nother thing, is there's a balance between throwing yourself into that happy, because you do need to practice it and experience it, and then also feeling the appropriate feels as well. And that's a
Yes.
constant balance with me, constantly. Like, when am I really yeah, because I feel like you have to practice it, right? You have to
Yes.
practice working out. You have to practice your brain. You have to practice all the development. And sometimes you have to practice happy, and you have to go out and you have to make the sun beat on your skin and
Yes.
take those deep breaths and take a picture of yourself and maybe edit it a little bit to make it look good and get a couple of those pictures, because you'll be happy about that later.
Yes.
So
And
I think it's
I like that you said practice happy, because and it's
yeah,
not numbing,
fudge.
right? There's a reality, there's like a real
Oh,
difference between doing things to numb, right? And doing things to
right.
practice the exposure for yourself so you can take those
Yes.
baby steps forwards to that true happiness, right?
Right, right, right. So I think as you said, the turning point was October of 2019. My parents, who I've lived, 10 minutes down the road from my entire life, and I'm now currently a 41-year-old woman. Mommy and Daddy were going to move to Hawaii. And that was very, very scary for me.
I love it.
um, but that sort of triggered also how sad I was. I was so sad about the babies, and I was so tired of being sad. And I
Mm,
found myself avoiding pregnant women, or it being, just really trying to just figure the whole thing out. And I found myself, like I said, putting all of my happiness into my ex. If he would just X, Y, and Z, I would be happy.
mm,
And I realized I had been saying that for a really long time. But I had too much of my own stuff to point my finger at anybody else. So I took FMLA for the first time, and I went to therapy, and I really kind of grieved the loss of those three babies.
mm.
I wrote them letters. All those emotions that I, sort of just put that smile on. I felt those.
Mm.
And it still makes me very sad, very sad today, but it's something that I honored.
Yeah.
And I went and talked to my doctor, and I got on medication. And I just started walking every day, and I started kind of making like little achievable goals. But my biggest mindset was I wasn't going to depend on my ex, my partner at the time, for my happiness.
Mm.
And once I that veil of depression got lifted, I saw how scary he was. Um, he was, during this time, when I was in FMLA, he was gone all the time, telling me that he was giving me time or hanging out with friends, just all of this like really sketchy behavior. But again, I I didn't want to see it, or I didn't want to, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I started seeing just his very scary behavior. He had lost a lot of weight. He wasn't coming home. He couldn't keep a conversation. He he was just very, very quickly like just not somebody I wanted to hang out with. Oh, but he had told me he had neuropathy. So he had told me he was diagnosed with neuropathy. So he couldn't sleep. He couldn't, all of these things. So everything was neuropathy.
Can
At
you
this
share
point,
with us what neuropathy means?
so from what I understand, it's a physical, it's a diagnosis where there's some nerve damage and it feels like your hands and feet are on pins and needles, and aching. And it's just a constant sort of internal, um, like electricity, probably.
Okay.
That's how he had described it. But whenever I would be like asking him about follow-up appointments and stuff, there was no follow-through. And like our life, like IVF stopped because he couldn't follow through on his part. Um, and so again, I stopped putting my happiness into him. And so I stopped nagging him about IVF. I stopped nagging him about his medical stuff. I started looking at me and cleaning out my closet, making my garden beautiful, taking my walks, reconnecting with old friends. And so I got on Instagram and I thought about, people who in my life have always been important. And I had my boyfriend in college, his little sister was, we were roommates and always super good friends. And I found her on, and they had moved to South Carolina in, I don't know, 2005. um, I found her on Instagram, and it was like it was December of 2019. So just last December, I reached out to her, and she happened to be in Phoenix, lived
Mm.
7 minutes away
Oh my
for
gosh.
years, for
What?
years. Yeah.
What a small world.
So I know. So we, like 3 days later, get sushi together and have, been inseparable ever since. And we'll get to that part, later. But there were all these things. As soon as told, I stopped creating excuses for my happiness besides myself. And even to this day,
Wow.
I start, and but I kept refocusing on that. And it
How do
took
you
kind
do
of
that, Holly? Because I think of
I
that in
don't
my own
know.
life, right?
I
Like,
don't know.
I definitely derive happiness from my husband. I definitely derive happiness from my
Oh.
son and from my job and from my friends. And to think about, wait a second, like, how do I reorganize and reorient that happiness to come from me and not from
I guess because I never
relationships?
got it. I never got it. My ex never stepped up and could never give me the kid or give me the marriage or
Yeah.
and I was sad, and I was mad at him, and I'm like, why am I
Mm,
stuck in my sad? And
mm,
I can't, I've tried this for like 12 years. So like, what makes me think anything's going to be different? And
yeah.
the only thing I guess after you lose three babies,
Yeah.
you don't have control. I can control nothing but
Yeah.
myself. And so I just had to focus on that. Was just, I want to be happy. So what can I do today that makes me happy? And who were the people who made me happy?
Mm,
And I just kept reaching out to them, and I kept spending time with them, and I kept creating moments with them. And as I did that, that made my ex very mad and very sad. And, he would say things like, oh, you think you're an independent woman? Or I, for 2 years, I had asked him to fix the roof on the backyard, and he never did it. And so I finally got a
mm,
handyman to come do it. And he pouted the entire time.
mm,
And it just became a situation where he was just kind of a really bad roommate.
mm.
And I was continuing to just really enjoy the people I was with. And so I was trying to figure out like what my next step was. And so at that time, I noticed, this isn't good. And so I started looking at homes that I was going to buy on my own, and starting to like envision like where I wanted to live and what I wanted to do and what I wanted my life to be like, my life. And so I was on that journey. And it was really pretty exciting. And I had broken up with my ex. I couldn't do it anymore. And he had been kind of in and out for a couple weeks. And
Hey, everybody, this is a trigger warning that the next segment of this podcast entails information that may be triggering. Holly is going to recount detailed experiences with being abused by her partner. This was a pivotal turning point in her story, so we wanted to include it in the podcast. Please feel free to jump forward if you do not wish to hear this information. You can resume with us at 44 minutes and 50 seconds. Thank you.
And so then so it was March, I don't know, 7th or 8th, I broke up with him. And then March 28th, 2020, so was the night that I had just such a good day. I worked in my garden. I mean, March in Arizona. I had worked in my garden. I was just soaking up all the little things in life. But this was at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I was ready to like throw myself into work and be like this like superhero social worker that was going to like change the face of behavioral health. Like I literally was having conversations with my friends who were quarantining, like saying, I'm not going to see you in a little while because I'm going to be like out there. I was literally having those conversations with like that friend that I had sushi with. I'm like, okay, I love you. I'm not going to see you in a while. And so go to bed that night at about 10:30 and kind of texting back and forth with friends. And my ex comes in and he's very erratic and yelling. And he he asks me what's going on outside, and I'm like, nothing's going on outside, and I'm literally in bed. And I have like my personal phone and my work phone next to me. And he tells me that, and at this point, he doesn't have a car, and so I don't know how he got to the house. But his behavior was so erratic, and he had told me that he was going to have sex with me, and I told him no. And that he said then he was going to rape me, and I said, well, then I'm going to call the police. He had asked me where my engagement ring was, and I told him that I haven't worn it because we broke up. And he then just sort of flipped a switch and grabbed me out of the bed. He threw me into the bathroom, told me I was going to sleep there for the night. When I got out of the bathroom and I grabbed my personal phone, he got on top of me, and he's 6'5".
Yeah,
He's
tall.
a big, he's a big, big man. He had lost a significant amount of weight, but still, much larger than me. So he was on top of me, and I still have scars on my hands from him digging. I was like sort of in the fetal position, and I had my phone in between my knees and my stomach and my hands holding it. And he was on top of me and just whipping my head back and forth and punching my body and digging at my hands for the phone.
Oh my gosh.
Um, then I got up from there, and you always reflect, and this is where I would have made a different move. But I ran into the bathroom and into the closet when I should have ran out the door, like the go that way. I went the wrong way.
Well, you don't even, it's like survival, right? You're just like,
so survival, but man, the story would have been so, but just door, right?
Yeah.
So I run into and of course he's right on top of me, and we're in the closet rustling for the phone, and we're wrestling, and I'm like sort of belly to the on the closet ground, and at this point bleeding from my head, and
Mm,
he's over my right hand shoulder, and I'm looking over my shoulder, and he's just biting my upper arm, just
mm.
biting me, and his eyes are just huge and wide, and I'm just like, why are you doing this? I just, why are you doing this? And he's grabbing hangers and he's whipping me.
Oh
And
my
I'm
gosh,
just
Holly.
trying to work the phone. I'm just trying to work the phone and work him. And I mean, I remember everything. And so
Oh my goodness.
finally he gets the phone out of my hand, and so in his phone, his personal phone's blowing up this entire time. So I'm on the closet. He gets the phone out of my hand. He gets on, the front of the door of the closet, and I stand up, and he just, whacks me in my face. I fall down. He laughs. And he tells me to get into the corner of the closet. I don't, because at this point I'm just like, fuck you, motherfucker. Like,
Yeah.
it's on, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to be your slave, but I got to be thoughtful about this. But I wasn't going to get in the corner. Like, that didn't
Yeah.
feel like a good idea.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
um, and so, I stood up again, and he had punched me again and made me fall. But that made him mad that I wouldn't get in the corner. So he got back down, and we started wrestling. And the hangers started again. And during this time, he's screaming like, Holly, why are you? It just all was just very, just crazy behavior. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is the person I've spent like half of my life with.
Yeah.
And holy moly. So finally I get out of his grip. I remember looking back, and he's grabbing my pajama pants, and I'm wiggling out of them. I grab my work phone, um, and I book it out of the house,
Mm.
in underwear, and I call 911. So he came into the house at like 10:33, and I think I called 911 at like 11:40
Oh my
something.
gosh, Holly. That's so much time. Like that
Yeah.
is terrifying.
Yeah, it was just solid, just like beating up. Like, it was just crazy.
Oh
It was
my
crazy.
gosh.
Yeah.
And you're literally running
It's
down the street in your underwear, like bleeding out of your
yeah.
head, right? Like,
Yeah. Like
Holly.
yeah, it was not good. So
And this is the man that you just spent tons of time and money and energy trying to have a baby with. Like,
well, yeah, he's the supposed to be my
oh,
protector.
yeah.
Um, and I think, and he was at a point, and he was good until he wasn't. And I think that has
Mhm.
to, we both fell into a pretty bad depression, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, I, threw myself into work, and then finally I figured out a medication and a therapy balance. He threw himself into some really, really bad things that I figured out, after all of this. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that was that night, but the trauma between March 28th and last, what, December 10th,
Yeah.
and even yesterday, it's still going.
Well, and I think it's so important to share that like one big event doesn't create trauma, right? It's not the event itself, but it's how our bodies are experiencing it, and that there's these tiny little triggers throughout life
Mhm.
after a big event that recreates that trauma, right?
Oh my gosh, crazy. Like, courtrooms.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I tried to go back to work for 1 week, and tried to go to court for a kid, and it was just like, I'm worthless. Like,
Oh.
Just little things. Even at this point today, Arizona area codes are really tough for me. When an Arizona area code pops up on my phone, it scares me. I'm just like,
Yeah.
ooh, who could it be?
Yeah.
Anything about my old life is still really tough to address.
And you're just kind of alluding to this now, but you had to recreate your life, right? Like you just referenced your
Yeah.
old life. Like
Yeah.
tell us about this journey and when it became um a choice for you to start healing.
Yeah. Well, so that happened, and at that point, my parents were in Hawaii, and my ex had really segregated me from a lot of people, but I had now these new pockets of people, and I was always, I love relationships. I feed off of relationships. So it
Yeah.
was something that, no, I could have called you that night,
Yeah.
but I had my work phone, and
Oh
it was
my
a
gosh.
pandemic. And at this point, it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm just like, and I don't know what to do. So I happen to have one of my dear friends who I met at work, and she was a direct support, and then moved into a leadership position
Mhm.
and whatnot.
Mhm.
I happen to have her personal number from when she was a direct support in my work phone, and
Oh.
I called her and I said, I have to go somewhere. And that's where I landed, and that's where I stayed until and so we have a whole nother journey that we've done together, because
Yeah.
but I it was it was really just so scary, because I my core, my parents were, I mean, there's literally, they were in
Yeah.
Hawaii. And so, and then them flying back into Arizona and then coming back and forth to Hawaii during the pandemic has been, they've had to fly back and forth 2 or 3 times. It's just been so like hard doing this on top of
Yes.
everything.
Yes, you don't realize, like, it's already
Like,
alienating trying to leave something like that,
yes.
and then on top of that, your device and I'm all of us, like, our phone feels like our lifeline, right? Like, it
Right.
houses all of the I don't have people's phone numbers written
Well,
down anywhere else, like, it's
right.
all in
And
there, it's my
he
connection.
and he had it.
Ah,
And so he had my personal phone. So so he had left the scene. The police hadn't been able to find him. And then that night I went to my friend's house. That next day had to get a police escort, got my dogs, just got a little bit of things. The house was a disaster.
mm,
Talked to all the neighbors and let the neighbors know, like, hey, I mean, they looked at me and they could see,
yeah.
this is what he did. We have a warrant out. And then went swimming. We did all the really hard stuff in the morning. And then I went swimming and I drank
Oh.
and I cried and I felt the
Oh.
sun and I swam more and I cried more and I laughed more and I cried more and I drank more and I swam more. Um, and then we planned the next day. The next day, went to the court and got a restraining order. And it's different now, I think, paperwork wise. And again, this is pandemic. So we're figuring out masks. We're putting
Mm.
on, at the very beginning of this Lysol thing. And like, it's just so, and I'm like black and blue, and people are looking at me, and I'm
No.
rocking it downtown. And,
Yeah.
my friend was with me the entire time.
Oh.
And so we, the figured out how to get a restraining order. And at this point he's still loose and I'm freaking out. And then um, finally, that I guess my neighbor sent me a text and let me know that he had come back to the home, and just walked in and was starting to work on, his car like nothing had happened.
Oh my gosh. And this
And
isn't his home, it's yours, right?
it
Like you
is
guys
right.
broke
I
up.
own it. Right, right. But he had lived there, so he had some. He at one point, I think he had some sort of rights because he dwelled there, but
Mhm.
that ended very quickly once
Yeah.
he beat me up.
Yeah.
So um, so my neighbor let me know he was there, and then we called 911. Police came, and then he had been arrested. Went to jail that night, put on an ankle monitor. And then, but that's really when it all kind of started. I started realizing how bad it was. So once he was on that ankle monitor, he still had my personal phone, and I didn't have a lock or anything on it because I'm a trusting person.
Mhm.
And so he was in my phone, um, just going through it and whatnot. And when people were calling that number, he was giving them my work number and going through, how phones are all linked to, emails and whatnot. And so going through all of this. So,
So you have,
you know,
even though you're separated, you have a restraining order. He's been
mhm.
arrested. He is still finding ways into your private life and
Oh,
infiltrating
yeah.
like the wall you're trying to build.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and he has all of his stuff at my home, and one of our biggest fights is he would never let me clean the house. He would never let me get rid of anything. And so there was just piles and piles of just junk that never always had this like intended purpose but was never being used. And
Mm.
so at this point I was like, F you. So he had this restraining order and whatnot, but still I was getting I my home got broken into 3 times. I had my neighbors tell me that there's this woman who continued to come to my home. I found out later that he had entered a master slave relationship with this woman, um, cleaning out.
That's like, to
Ooh,
me, that is just like, that's not something people hear, right? Like, that's not
right,
something that is
right.
known or
No, me neither.
talked
Mm-mm,
about. Like, that's not like a
mm-mm,
common thing, right?
mm-mm,
Like, this is,
mm-mm.
he literally entered into an agreement where he
Mm-hmm.
signed to own
Yes.
somebody.
And this woman signed, and it was dated in October of 2019 when I was going through all of my therapy.
Yeah.
And so after kind of just getting the shit beat out of you, and now I'm coming back to my home and I'm finding, I literally, that piece of paper, this woman, he was sending her to my home. And so she was like writing me letters like, I'm here to pick up Peter's things. He gave her the code to the garage, and I had her on video like trying to like open the garage door. um I probably not healthy, but I looked her up and found out she was like and she was convicted for prostitution. And so I'm sitting here, a former assistant director of a behavioral health agency,
Mm,
going into my home that I own, black and blue,
mm.
with my ex, it, pipes, pills, fake urine, all hidden in my home. And I mean, it was just terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. So,
And you just brought up something that I think, like, I didn't think of until just now, but I think is probably something that we wrestle with throughout life of, like, how can I have this identity, this title, this achievement, this
mhm,
education, this experience, this job, in this one hand and then be living this life experience that you just described on the other hand. And what is that like? What's that split in your brain and your body kind of feel like?
Shame and guilt, I think. I
Mm,
mean, I knew that something was wrong, but he told me neuropathy, and that was okay for me to believe because I
mm,
was focused on myself.
yeah.
Um, Prior to that, it was blind. Like, I didn't, so we, he sort of lived on the left side of the house.
Mhm.
That's how divided we really were. He kind of lived in his own bathroom. I never went in, and I kind of was in my space. And so I never really entered his space
Mm,
for the last year or so.
wow.
And so when I find all this, it's just all of it. It's like my body physically healing. And then it's just hit after hit after hit of like, oh, so he beat me up. Oh, he was cheating on me. Oh, he was like really like creepy cheating on me. Oh, he was doing that for a long time. So it's
And I've
uh,
gotta say this, like, I'm when you describe creepy cheating on me, like, you're describing something that's more so like human trafficking or like this
I don't know.
agreement of like, I
It
signed my
sounds
life over to you and you can kill me,
Mhm.
basically. That paper was
Mhm.
like, you have the right to my life. And if I
Right,
violate this, you may kill me. What? Like,
right. I
what?
know. I know. So I got STD tested like real
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
Let's put another test onto the therapy bill.
Oh,
Um,
Holly.
so I think, the only thing I can go back to is just is he was really, really good, but then it was really, really bad. And then this like huge
Mm,
traumatic event happened to both of us. And I mean, he went into drugs. I mean, just
mhm.
the pipes and all I can go into is the man that did that wasn't the man I fell in love with. That man
Yeah,
died. I've
yeah,
grieved that guy. I grieved him with the babies, honestly.
yeah.
Like I really that part I was done with a long time ago. Um but just the world now, it's just more of like, I mean, I think I went into just this complete survival mode because I was like, I'm not going to stay in this house. I was planning on moving out of the house anyway.
Mhm.
And knowing him, I mean, I had tried to break up with him. Like, he's the kind of guy who just loves you so hard, like I just, he just, he loved me so much. I could never leave, and that's very unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I see pieces of my relationship now where I'm wanting these like big bursts of passion, which are good, but there's this, I don't know, it's just something that I'm figuring out moving forward because he he did love hard.
Mhm.
um but it ended very painfully.
And that's like a mind twist all in of itself, right?
Yeah,
Like, to
right.
be loved so intensely and to have the moments of
Like,
pain
I won't
and
let you go.
hurt.
That's what I
Yeah.
that I'm like, why wouldn't he just let me go? Because I was done. But he wouldn't let me go, but he still kept doing all those things. And that's where I'm just like, what? Like, just but that's where it goes back to the drugs. Like,
Yeah.
and then I have to keep telling myself, he's not in his rational mind, and I can't continue to waste more of my life and time trying to figure him out.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to draw that line for your life of, okay, now you're gonna choose you, right? Like you've
Mhm.
discussed earlier of
Mhm.
creating your own happiness and finding that within yourself and not within somebody else. And now here you are making a decision of like, all right, now life in and of itself, not just happiness, but how I do life and how I've done life for how many years were you with him, Holly?
We started dating at the end of 2005.
Oh my goodness. So, so for 15 years, right?
Yeah,
15 years
I know. It's
of your life.
bonkers.
Now you're like flipping the switch inside yourself of I'm going to do life differently, right? And it's not just who you're doing it with, but it's how you're choosing to live.
Yeah, trying to figure that out.
Mhm.
So, um, I I suppose it was a choice. I don't know. I don't know if it was a choice or not. It felt like it had to happen. So,
Like an
you know,
ultimatum type of feeling?
no, I don't know. I guess as far as like the decision to move, like I, I could not be in that home anymore.
Yeah.
Like physically, but there's no way I would ever be there by myself, or
Yeah.
even, I mean, just so I knew that that home was going to be sold.
Mhm.
And I tried to go back to work. I lasted a week. I was a mess.
Mhm.
And I was so blessed to work with the people we work with. And I still am blessed to be connected to folks. But that was a big choice. And
Yeah.
I knew that I wasn't well enough to go back to work.
Mm.
That was really hard. Um, and it's still something where that I wonder, like, hey, was it a cop out, or but I just knew I couldn't do what we do and how we do it with what I'm going through.
I
And
think what's
so,
powerful for me, Holly, too, is that your work was a piece of your identity. It was
right,
something that
it
it
was
was
the only
not.
piece
Yeah, it wasn't
at
like a
one point.
job where you clock in and you clock
Mm-mm.
out. Like, this was a full investment into the identity of who is
Mm-hmm.
Holly, right?
It was projects and creations and inspiring. And it
Mhm.
was at times the thing that kept me going because I
Mhm.
had people relying on me.
Mhm.
And so, I think that, a lot of my choices kind of came out of, I found myself being very impulsive, which is different than my normal character, probably a product of the trauma.
Yeah.
Um, but some of it I was embracing because it felt, in need. And so, the pandemic is getting bigger and bigger, and I my butt was traveling. I found some cheap plane deals, and I was safe, and I wore a mask. But I found water, I found sunsets, I found beaches, I found
Mm.
people. Um, I continued to connect to people. I called people. I talked to people. I told people my story, and I wasn't ashamed of it. And
I
but I
admire that about you, Holly, because this is something that could become a skeleton in somebody's closet. It could be something that people pretend like never happened, or they feel shame around and it becomes a definition or like something etched in you that creates ongoing pain. And you didn't mark it with shame. You didn't you opened the door of being transparent and vulnerable with the people around you and honest around what you were going through to a degree that brought like I was in awe of you when you
Aw.
first shared this. Like when I first found out, I was like, "Wait, what?
Me
Holy
too.
smokes."
That's how
Holly
I
Stressman?
felt
No way. Like,
too.
oh my gosh. But here you are being open and transparent and honest with it. And people aren't even freaking honest about silly, goofy things like silly habits that they have, right? Yet
Yeah.
here you are showing this huge scar of pain that's like still weeping, like bleeding, and you're wearing it and not letting it hold you down and weigh you down. Like, and I could
Well,
tell it was heavy, but damn, like you were a freaking bodybuilder or something lifting
It's
that.
well, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like when you're in high school and you have the huge zit on your face and you're like, we all know it's there.
It's just there.
So let's just talk about it and hope it gets better. I don't know
love
what else
you.
to do. Like, it's there. Like, it's gross and ugly, and there's not enough makeup to cover it up. Like, it's oozing out of me. So if like I don't know.
Oh
But
gosh.
it's but I with that though, I found my people, and then I got on Facebook.
Mm.
I and that's been a blessing and a curse. That's
Mhm.
been, I've gone down a little rabbit hole that was probably not very good, which is the reason that wasn't one of the reasons I wasn't on Facebook before is kind of idolizing something
Mm.
that's not there,
Yeah.
but also finding this beauty in it. And I found a lot of beauty and reconnections and friends from high school, and a
Mm.
lot of beauty in that media source. Uh, so I was so blessed to have so many relationships, and so many relationships that I had neglected because of my ex. When somebody's in that kind of, I wouldn't go out all the time, or because not he would never tell me no. It would just be a constant, are you going to wear that? Or it would
Mm.
just be it was just easier not to.
Yeah.
um and so I again, those relationships that I was fostering prior to this incident um were blooming at this point. But I was also, I'm still scared, and his slave girls still contacting me, his items are still in my home. I'm his surveillance officer. Easter day, I had the best day. We were in the pool, I zoomed with family, I was in the middle of a Zoom call, and his surveillance officer calls me and says, are you at your home? And I said, no. And she goes, okay, good. My ex is outside the house, and he had sent the slave girl to come to the home. And it was just like, every time that I'm trying to regain my life, I'm getting these slams.
Yeah.
And and then again, downtown Phoenix, that was our jam, that was our place. So everywhere I was going, I was getting triggered by memories of him, or scared that he was going to walk in.
Yeah.
And so I knew that after I quit my job, which was one of the hardest things I had to do,
Mm.
um, that I needed to be out of Arizona.
Mm.
I couldn't. I knew I needed to sell my house, and I knew I couldn't buy another house in Arizona. And so I started exploring, and I traveled, and during this time had reconnected with the ex-boyfriend from college.
Mhm.
from the so and so after I'd broken up with my ex, had reintroduced myself to, I don't know how to re-say him, but and then, a couple days later, that incident happened. And
Yeah.
so and he lives in South Carolina, and so during, that time, it was another very strong support system
Mm.
via the phone, because all my support system during that time was via the phone or Zoom.
Yeah.
And so I knew I had to get out of Arizona, and so found a really cheap plane ticket to South Carolina, and came here with, no expectations, and just honestly, Dina, slept. Um,
Mm.
slept for the first time Just took walks, looked at the leaves. During
Mm.
this entire time, I've had to, you can feel the anxiety, you can feel the stress, you can feel the pain. I can physically feel myself getting, um, it's like this bubbling feeling, and I have to move.
Mm.
Um, and so I think though it was like that times a million. Like I could not be like the physical being in Arizona was just, it was too hard. And the second I was somewhere else, some of that lifted.
Yeah.
And so just spent 9 days here and really with absolutely no agenda, but enjoying company of friends and um, watching TV and just feeling safe, and felt really safe. And during that time, the relationship continued to kind of grow from a past, like, to a
Mhm.
more like. Um, and then as I came back to Arizona, I did more traveling. I went to the Dakotas, and um, water has been huge.
Just seeing bodies of water, right? Just
Bodies of water,
mhm.
listening. The wind has been massive to me. So as these big moves, praying, and
Mm.
just, and I'm not traditional by any means, but like, hey buddy, hey big guy, like
Come on, God.
I need some sort of, like, just let me know I'm going the right way. And that's been something for me too that I shifted, is prior to therapy, I would be praying to God for a child, or praying for Pete to figure it out, or praying for this. And as many times as I was told it, it didn't hook me, or it didn't make sense to me until, again, it was just let me know I'm going in the right direction. Right. I
Yeah.
just need, I don't, it's not about getting something. It's about expressing your will and getting feedback in a way that you need it to know that you're going in the right direction.
That's deep, Holly. Like,
Woo.
hold on that for a second. Like, let's just press hold on. Like, you just dropped a nugget of wisdom of what your spirituality does for you and the shift you had to make of
Right.
from asking for a
Mhm.
specific thing to believing in the direction you're moving, right? And the
Mhm.
sensation of is this right? Do I keep taking this step forward?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
Like
A lot of
wow.
nights, like, in the backyard, taking deep breaths, sobbing, and just
Mm.
being like, is this what I need to do? And for me, it was wind, and I would just get these huge, it would just be nothingness. And I mean, Arizona, it's just desert.
Yeah.
And I'd just be out there for a while, and outside, stopping the TV, really just nature and outside, and just, and huge gusts of wind would happen, and I'd be like, okay, I got you, okay. And it would just continue to manifest into feeling like these are the right moves.
Mm.
And also knowing that it had to change, it had to. And so I also was super blessed to have this opportunity, as I was continuing to build my relationship with my current boyfriend,
Mhm.
was you know uh, talking through and kind of figuring out, hey, is this what we want to do, and does this make sense? And
Mhm.
who does this? But it just, you know and I've never done a long distance relationship thing, but 4 hours on the phone, 5 hours on the phone, every night,
Mm.
and just and I don't even really remember a whole lot of it. It was just safety, I
Yeah.
think. And
Yeah.
and so we had figured, again, so blessed that his family had a room that was able to be rented. And I and it was there, Hawaii, where my family lives, but with the pandemic, Hawaii's it's not easy to get into
Mhm.
Hawaii, and
Mhm.
especially moving, it's a lot. And so I just kind of felt blessed that well, not kind of, I so feel blessed that it just made sense that to move. And so everything just sort of fell into place. And my home so finally, my ex got his items out of my house. And once that happened, that was a big moment, because then I didn't have anything physically left for him to negotiate with him. Everything
Yeah.
else could be through the lawyers.
Yeah.
um and once that happened, I was able to sell my house. And his so and it gets complicated, but his family, my current boyfriend's family, um, that his little sister that I was very close to, their stepmom's a realtor. So she was the one showing me homes prior to everything happening. And then she's the one who sold my home. She didn't, of course, she was just like, I'm doing this for you as a favor." And
No.
my house like sold in like 10, like the day I put it on the market, within 12 hours I had so
Oh my
everything
gosh.
just oh, it was crazy, above offering. And they did a very short closing. And literally, as I was driving my little toaster car out of Arizona, and literally moving across country, which that's such a cool experience, and it has to happen for everybody. I mean, that's a whole nother story, like just driving across country, everybody needs to do it. But that was part of the healing too, like, just I've been to Nashville, like I've moved across country, like, hello. um
And you moved
um
across country with just what you could carry with you, right? Like, you
I had
literally
a little U-Haul, but yeah, that
yeah,
was it.
just what
Yeah,
you were a little traveling with.
I just purged everything. There really wasn't anything about that ex relationship, that I wanted.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I forgot even what I'm just going on this diatribe. Um, um, oh, what was I saying, Dina?
You were saying that you got everything in your little car, you moved across country, you got to go to Nashville, and, like, this huge experience in and of itself of traveling across country, right? And so you move
Yeah.
and you start your new life in South Carolina, right? Like
Yeah, so here I am. And I mean, I don't know if you've been here, but it's pretty amazing. There's seasons and
mm.
weather and Christmas Day. Oh, so like the little signs, right?
Mhm.
Christmas Day, I wake up and there's like snow falling, and
Oh
it's
my
like a
gosh.
little dust of snow, but that's big for me.
Coming from Arizona, where we're like,
Yes.
literally, it's December, and I'm driving my son to preschool, and I'm like, look, there's fall, like a tree
I
changed
know.
colors.
know. I know. And yeah, trees changing colors. So there's
Oh,
been so many pieces of like beauty that I've been able to see. And
mm,
again, so many signs that it just felt right. And
yeah.
I've been able to have this here, relationships with folks, and groups of a group of friends, and just really this kind of southern charm and acceptance, and I don't know, it's so the relationship with now my new ex-boyfriend who was my ex-boyfriend from college, but
Mhm.
now is my new boyfriend. It's all very weird and not intentional because when I started talking to him, he lived in South Carolina and I was there in Arizona. And so that was very far away and very safe, right? Here we are.
And now it's your
Um,
whole life, right? Like,
yeah, and
you've
so I'm trying to
recreated
figure that
yourself.
out. Yeah, I'm trying to kind of figure that out as far as like what's next of of that. And so being here and still trying to heal,
Yeah.
right? So I court, finally on I think it was November.
Mhm.
But finally, my ex did the plea deal that he's gonna have 3 years of intense domestic violence
Mm.
probation. He can't drink alcohol. I have contact with his probation officer. All of that stuff. Sentencing was just last week.
Mm.
So I'm still dealing with restitution and all this court stuff. So I'm like, it's so tough because I'm trying to manage my old life, and then embrace my new life. And my new life's like way more fun. Um, so I'd really like to do that, but until I can figure out my old life shit out, it
Yeah.
seeps into my new life. And so
And I
it's
I think
that's a
that's
thing.
yeah, and I think that's a thing for that's worth honoring too, is like it's not like I made this decision and life's rainbows and butterflies. And even
No.
when this door completely closes and you have nothing to do with court proceedings or lawyers and all of that's done, it's still not rainbows and butterflies because life
No.
life is just not always what you envision or dream that it's going to be. Like it comes with hard stuff. And I'm curious now, like you've gone through super painful, hard, scary, am I going to live and survive this moment having to look over my shoulder stuff, right? Like that
Mhm.
hard stuff. And now as you're stepping into a life, that's still a part of your memory and that's still
Mhm.
a part of what your body can experience
Mhm.
and be taken back to every once in a while. And
Mhm.
there's still the reminders of this new Holly trying to become a new Holly and who's the old Holly and what do you want to take with you and what are you recognizing from
Mhm.
patterns of relationships that you want to
Mhm.
be weary of. Like there's still these growing pains that
So many.
yeah, that exist. And so share with us a little bit about like what's your routine? What's your recipe for life right now, today, right? That you use
Uh,
to navigate each little snowball of that comes at you, right? That you're trying to dodge and
yeah.
manage. What does that look like?
Yeah. I think it's definitely something that is a work in progress for me. I am usually a routine kind of gal and just have been so thrown off of my routines that that's something that like said earlier, I have to practice.
Mm,
And I've found myself at times, I practice reactively. So I start feeling the anxiety in my tummy, or I start noticing that I'm sifting down this Facebook hole of
mm.
um people from high school who have 4 kids and this perfect
No.
life,
Mhm.
right? But I see myself doing that and I'm like, okay, knock it off. And so right now I'm trying to figure out my habits that I want to reject,
Mm,
and being aware of that. And then I'm also trying to figure out how to proactively add the good habits. So currently, I try to again, the sunsets and the running and all of that, and I'll get really good in that mode. But this last week, I haven't gone for a walk at all because
mm.
of Richard Stodder's birthday and my birthday and then Christmas and, a gazillion excuses, right? Always the
Mhm.
thing, the thing,
Mhm,
the
mhm.
shiny thing to give the excuse to. It happens all the time. Um, So what's my recipe? I don't know. I think right now my recipe is to really just feel my feelings, because
Mm,
I've taken a really long time of not honoring them, but then not letting them control me. So I, you know, Thanksgiving was really, really, really hard.
mm,
Um, Thanksgiving, I kind of, and again, I am in a relationship, but it's new. And I kind of was just like, what do what am I thankful for? And I was like, well, I'm thankful that I'm not dead.
yeah.
Um, and so that it was hard. It was hard. It hit me that I don't have kids. It hit me that I've never been married. It hit me
Mm,
that I don't have my career anymore. And I let myself be pretty sad on Thanksgiving.
mm,
um uh but then about like 8 o'clock, I was really just sort of tired of feeling sad. So I talked to my boyfriend and just was like, hey, this it's a sad day and this is a tough day. And um I kind of just put it out there and let it be that, and went to bed. And then the next day it was a better day.
mm,
um the beginning of my birthday, I got sad, and I think that's for me. I'm realizing holidays are tough because which is so freaking ironic considering the business that I'm going into, by the way. So let's put that out there. And maybe that's something that we dissect later, right? MST
Seriously.
girl. Let's put something, let's slap it on there.
Oh.
But I've never had a bridal shower. I've never had a wedding. I've never had a baby shower.
Mm,
I've never had any of those big life moments or these passages that women have. Um and not that that's good or bad, it's just I think during holidays it hits harder.
yeah.
And so being aware of that, and then again choosing how I'm going to control it, right? Because if I expect anybody else to, I'm just going to be upset. And so I suppose that's something I'm still trying to figure out is um feeling the emotions, knowing when to honor it, knowing when to feel it, knowing when to talk about it, knowing when to share it, and then knowing when to let it go. um That's huge because I don't wanna get stuck in my sad, but I also don't wanna push it down.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, that's wise, Holly. Like, the complexity of feelings and what to do with them when they arise, right?
yeah, that's really where I'm at, like, and
Yeah.
I've been blessed that I have a little bit of money in my pocket that I haven't had to depend on working, and
Mhm.
I mean, and that's a blessing, and I but it's truly like that's where I'm at, is like just really managing emotions and figuring out what's appropriate or not. I mean, one of the first times I had some really tough or I needed to talk to my boyfriend about something, and I was so scared because my past history is when I would bring up a concern, I was overreacting or I was stupid, or it
Mm.
always came with like something like just I'm being stupid. And when I
Uh-huh.
came to him with that concern, we talked about it, but he also gave me feedback, and we had this whole grown up discussion, and then created kind of not even a solution, but said we were going to work on things, and then applied working on those things. And it blew my mind. And so I was like, oh, you can do that. And so like I'm like baby girl again, like in feelings and relate, like
I
trying to
giggle
figure it.
because, like,
Yeah.
the reality of, like, I just gotta say this. So, for the job that you left, right? Like, the career that you had is literally all about analyzing behaviors, understanding
I
them,
know.
working in families' homes, supporting
I
them
know.
through communication, and
I
all
know.
these tidbits. And then like, teaching and preaching is way different than practicing and
Mhm,
living and having
mhm.
somebody that's going to be receptive with you in that practice.
And
And
practice it
oh,
with you.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I giggle because I think it's people will say, "I know this, but why don't I do this?" Or like, "I know that what I'm doing is not how I should do it,
Right.
but why?" And that why, uncovering that why, like there's difference between knowing something and like implementing something.
Yeah.
That's a different muscle you're using, right? It's a different
Yeah.
thing to practice.
Yeah. Oh, and it's hard and you slip. I mean,
Yes.
and I'm like, "Oh, stinking thinking, like, it's bad. Like, what are you doing? Get off of the Facebook. Don't find the boy that you knew in 6th grade and stop looking. Like, what are you doing? Knock it off." Like, you're literally where you wanna be right now, and you're stuck, and so, like,
Oh.
but then there's also this awesomeness of like I don't know, there's this beauty of I've reached out to folks who have been struggling as well and found strength in their story
Mm.
and have found that I've been able to check in on them and um so I don't know, there's just been there's been more beauty in this than I can even imagine. I mean, the beginning was a bunch of manure, but like the garden is coming.
Oh.
It's so much.
You're blooming,
But
right? Like,
yeah, like it's
mhm.
crazy. But there's also like it's so weird. And then so like my little personal world is so weird, but then like the world is so weird. And um, so there are times that like I'm like, did I die that night? Like,
Mm.
did I just die that night? And then I'm living in this like alternate reality where I don't have to work and I'm living with my ex-boyfriend and um like everybody wears masks and, like
Is this real
I don't
life? Am I
know.
living?
Like
It's, because
yeah.
it's surreal, right? Like,
It is.
you started this journey, you started out today sharing, like, 2016, right? 2016 is
Mhm.
when you started a time of your life of loss and grieving and pain and depression. And 4 years later, here you are emerging through the manure, like this bud
Yeah,
that's flowering, and it feels surreal. It
it
doesn't
does.
like, pinch me, right? Like, how did I get here? And but the reality of it is that every day is not like this gorgeous, like, eye-opening,
No.
like, flower feeling the sun and dancing in the wind. Like, you create
Mm-mm.
that. You create that
Mhm.
moment if you need it, when you need it, and when you
I'm
recognize you
choosing
need
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really, really am. Like, literally, I will make myself step outside. And like I said, I'll feel the sun or I'll find it. Or
Mhm.
I have to find a pretty picture. Or
Mhm.
I've never been um, great at articulating how I feel. But man, give me a picture and let me, manipulate that and throw a song on it. And
Mm.
that's, sometimes that's healing.
Mm.
And so again, it's that balance, but again, it is absolutely figuring it out. And so even when you told me like, let's talk, I'm like, well, I don't really know what people, man, because it's constant figuring it out
Mhm.
and taking those
Mhm.
deep breaths getting that hit and assessing and reaching out to the people that know me the best for a gut check, you
Mm.
know?
Mhm.
And I think all, and then also, and again, I think like to go back to your question of how do I go, I'm trying to feel my feels. I'm trying to feel my emotions. I'm trying to
Mhm.
respond to them appropriately. Um, and then I'm trying to create my identity as far as honoring my story, but I'm also not this, I'm not a victim, and it's not like a platform, and but it's something that I'm trying to figure out how to share that would
Yeah.
help people. So even you know, asking me to do this, and other people have asked me, and I'm just like, well, but why, meh, but
Mm.
why? Like, I'm a mess. I'm a mess.
But
Like,
life is messy, like
I started this bit. So my bit. So like,
yes, tell us
I'm
about
trying to
it.
work, and I've worked at that our agent our my old behavioral health agency for like I like to work. I like to that's my thing. And
Mhm.
so so excited and lucky that it's I'm starting a card yard rental sign business. And so any type of celebration or message or anything you want to say, especially with the pandemic going on, it's a really cool opportunity to customize, you know, congratulations Molly, or happy birthday Dina, or welcome home Jeremy, and you know, customize it with like different types of signs and emojis. And so I got my LLC in South Carolina, and got my signs and got my products, and I'm starting to learn about marketing online. So the girl who wasn't
Yes.
on Facebook or Instagram, not only is it on personally, but trying to figure it out business wise. um and I feel again so blessed that like I can do this, but I'm also it's also really, there's really a lot of days of frustration where I did nothing for work, and
Mm.
I literally, you know, sat and, you know, didn't have a whole lot of to-dos, got the basics done, and then watched TV all day,
Yeah.
and then
And
felt
that's
really
okay though. Like, we need those days. Like, it might have felt crappy, but we
yeah.
need those days.
Yeah, we do, but then when those days kind of lap onto each other, right? Or you know,
Mhm.
and so I think when so I'm figuring that out. I'm figuring out again more of that that when you own your own business, nobody's telling you what to do. So you're like,
You're
"Oh
figuring
crap."
it out.
So but even today I had a business meeting with some of the other gals that are doing it and getting ideas, and and so again, so many good days, and then so many things to look forward to, but I have it like right there. There are days like I literally have everything right there. I have the list of what I need to do. I still have bullet points of stuff that I have to do for court that I
Mm.
just haven't done yet. I just haven't done it
Wow.
yet. And sometimes that makes me feel really bad and guilty. And then other times I ignore it. And then day by day, I just try to take that pile and click it off. And every time
Mm.
I check something off, I feel better. And the days that I don't, I try to give myself grace and try
Mhm.
to be around people that'll hold me accountable.
And I like that you create a physical checklist for yourself, right? Like when things are overwhelming, break it down into little pieces and watch yourself as you get it done, checking it
Yeah.
off like you are
I've
accomplishing
always been like
something.
that.
I know you have your little
I
notebook that you carry around with your lines through everything. I know it very well.
know. Me and my paper.
I know. Holly, can you give us a little bit of detail about your yard signs and how we can find you and your friends in South Carolina? Where do they look you up? How does it all work?
Yeah, so it's Yard Signs. So if you want to look us up online, it's www.heartyardsigns.com. And then Instagram and Facebook, it's Heart Yard Signs SC for South Carolina. Just look that up on Facebook or Instagram, and you can find me.
Yay! And
Yay!
so I encourage people that are listening to this and all of your friends in South Carolina as this spreads to them, like check out Heart Yard Signs and spread the love. Like this has been a beacon of hope of you being an
Yes,
individual, creating something,
that's
harnessing
right.
like the power of healing in very different ways than just the traditional like
Yes.
asking for help or going to the therapist,
Mhm.
right? Like, not to say that hasn't helped you because it has, but
Oh, so much, so much.
creating helps, right? And spreading
Mhm.
joy helps and making things fun. Like, come on.
Yes. I mean, being
Uh,
able to get phone calls of like they loved it, it's so cool in the picture.
no,
It's really cool. So it's
that's beautiful.
I'm excited.
I want to share. So, I have this little book. It's called Meditations for Women Who Do Too Much. And it's written it's written by Ann Wilson Schaaf. And this is a little book that was given to me when I joined this like empowering women's group in 2020. And it goes by days. And so I'm going to read today's passage because I read this today before we started, and I've had a heavy
Yeah.
heart in the past 24 hours. And reading this and hearing your story and knowing you, I feel like this is all connected. And we talk about like looking for signs, like things like this
Mhm.
are things that I seek out to resonate deep inside my soul to help me keep going or to remind me of whatever foundation and grounding I need to carry what I carry. And so this one's called Letting Our Lives Happen. Fate keeps happening. Anita Luce. Our lives are not set in stone. Lives, like flowers, continue to unfold. We have options and we have choices all along the way. Certainly, we have been influenced by our past and the many forces that have impinged upon us in our formative years. Yet, we do have the ability to alter our present and our future. Fate is a process that continues to emerge. As we accept who we are, we have the possibility of becoming someone else. That is the paradox of life and of living. When I can let life happen, I feel better. And when I can participate in the happening of my life, I soar. Life is in the living. The process of life keeps happening. And that resonates so deeply, Holly, with the message
Mhm.
that you shared with us today. Like, you are actively in your life choosing the steps to build the happiness, to practice happy. I love that
Mhm.
saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To go out and find the influences, whether that's in nature or the friendship, the pick me up that you need for your next breath and your next step. And there's so much power when you start participating in your life, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Beautifully said.
beautifully said for you, Missy. You taught
Yay.
it, and all of a sudden the book read it. And I'm like,
There you go.
what?
It's a
What?
moment.
The stars are aligning.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much, Holly, for joining us
Oh,
today.
thank you
And
guys.
thank you for being so strong and transparent and sharing your journey, your story, the hard and the good, and all that it is in between. Because honoring the messy middle
Right.
needs to be a norm for us.
It does.
We see ourselves in this world and we compare ourselves to perfection, and the perfection we see around us is false. It's not
Mhm.
real. It's altered, it's
Mhm.
filtered. It's just the pieces that people feel comfortable sharing. And there's so much power in sharing the reality of a life, the messy middle and what we learn so
Mhm.
that we can truly heal together. So thank you so much,
Yeah.
Holly.
Oh, thank you, love.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you are feeling inspired and empowered in your own healing journey. I know that many of you listening might be reflecting on your own stories that you may feel called to share. If so, please reach out to me at dinat@empowertoheal.com. That's DENAT@empower2heal.com. Or drop me a message through my Instagram handle at empower2heal. I would love to connect with you and learn about your journeys so that we can hopefully continue to spread these powerful life lessons on empowering ourselves to heal. My contacts will also be linked in the show notes below so that you can easily find me. We are so eager to start a movement in showcasing the many ways we can heal. And you can be part of this movement too by capturing images and tagging them #empower2heal on Instagram. We look forward to seeing all the ways that you are empowered to heal. I love you, beautiful souls, and thank you so much. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and review.